reflect on his interactions with Nujoma, the challenges of transitioning from liberation to governance, and the legacy of Namibia's founding president. Ben Amathila, thank you so much for making time to join us.
Thank you very much.
I think a good start to this conversation would be to share your reflections on what has transpired and what has affected all of us as a country.
Well, let me see whether I will have the courage, let alone the wisdom to reflect timelessly of what happened. A big tree has fallen. A tree which was the anchor of our peace and political stability in this country has fallen. I had the privilege of visiting Comrade Nujoma a day before yesterday. I think it was Friday. And I watched him lying there, the once active person, thinker, strategist, who let us freedom. I watched him lying there, motionless. And I realized, in spite of the fact that I wanted him to continue fighting, that it's only a matter of time and he will leave us. A tree has fallen, a very big tree. But one gets the feeling that its branches will continue lying, spreading or spread over the soil of Namibia. The trunk of this tree will resemble the people of Namibia who came to know Sam Nujoma, trust him, believe in him. The branches will resemble his wife, his children, and those who stayed and worked together with him to make Namibia what it is today. Yes, a big tree has fallen. It brings about a challenge of those who knew him and believe in him to carry the torch forward. The nation has not been built yet. We are halfway in building the nation. The problem has not been solved, all of them. We solve only one problem, that is the independence that we attain. But in the structure of our liberation struggle, we thought we were going to bequeath this to a young generation to continue with the struggle of providing bread, shelter, and to know each other so that Namibia becomes a united people to carry the battles forward. Now that the tree has fallen, we don't know. We don't know.
Uncle Ben, talk to us. Let's take your time.
That's right.
Let's go back a bit in history. And the first encounter that you had with the late founding president, what did you make of him when you first met this man that you probably heard before, and many Namibians at that time knew that he was on a path of wanting to see not only himself but the rest of the country be liberated from the brutal apartheid regime of South Africa. Talk to us about that.
You see, I met Comrade Nujoma. I did not get that feel that we knew the role he was going to play or the role all of us were going to play. That was 1946. He was a young man, slightly slim, taller. He came from Ovamboland, the then Ovamboland. He stayed at our place in Tsumeb. Passed on to Wolfish Bay. We had the privilege to see him again. He was working at a Norwegian factory where they killed wolfish, those big fishes, processing them into oil and things of the sort. Then from there he moved on to Windhoek. He was a man who easily adapted and adjusted to the circumstances that he found himself. Having come from the north, obviously he could not speak most of the languages spoken in the police zone. But very soon he was associating himself with Ochiherero-speaking people, Nama-speaking people. And that gave him the ability to mold and to try to mold others to his ideas, and he adapted to their ideas. He became a railway worker in Windhoek, and occasionally he would travel to Cape Town. And some of the best thinkers of the oppressed people lived in Cape Town. That is the Yatoivos, Jacob Kuhangwas, the Amela Polises. And they had a feeling that Namibia must be free and led to independence. But they were in Cape Town, they could not come and do it to share those ideas. So Nujoma, being on the railway line, traveling from time to time to Cape Town, kept on bringing some of these ideas. And the people around Windhoek, that was the nucleus of the people who had the privilege of knowing there was a mandate system over the territory of Southwest Africa. Some of us didn't know even when we were at school and had the best education that time, best education in comparative terms to all the other blacks, from a school called the Augustinium. This mandate system and the obligation of South Africa to lead us to independence was hidden away from us. It was the time when Michael Scott came here from Botswana, had a discussions with the Chiefs Council and Usia Kutaku, that the process started. Nujoma, being the president of OPO, joined the others in demanding and sending joint petitions to the United Nations, demanding that Namibia or Southwest Africa be put under the mandatory system of the United Nations, or trustee system of the United Nations. And that led to mobilizing people in Windhoek not to attend to the beer halls and the bus services of the municipality, with the argument that this money collected from them was being used to build the location called Katutura. There was a march which they mobilized. Moses Karwap was a member of SWAN at the time. Talked to the people to stand up. In December the 10th, there was a shooting. And after the shooting, obviously, he was a marked man. And he has to flee first to Ovamboland. And then the practice was the South Africans will just press a button, tell the chiefs to detain you, and sometimes to ill-treat you, and sometimes you disappear. He came back well resolved that the best battle he can fight is to leave the country, to go and fight for the liberation of his country and its people. But before he does that, somebody who became later a very, very good buddy, friend, and ally was Oliver Tambo. Oliver Tambo came here as a lawyer from South Africa to come and defend Nujoma at the courts for being persecuted for the role he played on December 10. But Oliver was not allowed to practice. He was stopped here at Eros, and on the ground that, or they claimed that he didn't have a permit to practice in Southwest Africa. He was put on a plane, sent back to South Africa. So the legal defense that we thought will be defending Nujoma has evaporated. And that was at the time that in February 1960, Nujoma left this country. Now, I think that formed the basis of the very good relationship between Oliver Tambo and Nujoma in exile, to the extent that even after independence, Nujoma took a delegation, I was part of the delegation, to travel to Benoni to the grave of Oliver Tambo as friend, a colleague. And he was a father to all of us, Oliver Tambo. He was a father. He did so much trying to bring the fighters from Namibia and the fighters from South Africa. That's now Oliver Tambo to treat them as his children. That was quite remarkable. When Tambo, Becky, and the others came, they found that foundation laid of Oliver Tambo, the father to all the children of South Africa and Namibia. Hence, the good relationship between ANC and SWAPO and the battles that we fought together to liberate both South Africa and Namibia.
Yeah. South Africa at that time was a military might on the continent, and perhaps also one of the strongest, military, had strongest militaries in the world. And the fact that this young man from Mwanganjera, who was herding cattle growing up, had this vision of saying, look, we will take you on. No matter what it takes, we will take you on. At what point did you look at Sam Nujoma and say, this man is something extraordinary, and bought into the idea of also getting into the struggle for Namibia's independence?
Yeah, this young man, he was older than myself. I won't be able to call him young man, but he was a young man from Mwanganjera who professed he was going to put the oppressors in his places. There was a time when, especially in 1956, when the Suez Canal crisis broke out, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt destroyed all the ships which were in the Suez Canal. And no ships would pass through the Suez Canal, be from Europe or from Asia. And ships from those places have to go around South Africa. And South Africa became the darling of the West. South Africa got all the weapons, all the supports from the West, because it was said that they were protecting the sea route around the Cape of Good Hope. Now, what it meant, I know that the French provided them the Mirages, and the Italians Saracens tanks, and the British provided them the Buccaneers and all kind of weapons. South Africa didn't run short of weapons. The only thing that they were short of is it was only 1.5 million whites who were trusted to use these weapons until later when the wars increased, that they realized that a black man with a gun can also kill a white man. It's only then that South Africa started recruiting blacks, both in Natal and in Namibia, to fight the battles against. But the point is, South Africa was the largest and the strongest military force in the country, on the continent. After the Egyptians' forces were destroyed by combined forces of the French, the Israelites, the British, South Africa became the force. Now, for Namibia or for SWAPO or for Namibia, for Sam Nujoma, to dare taking on this force, it sometimes boggles my mind. Didn't we think properly? Were this information hidden from us? But it would appear to me it's the desire, the urge to independence. If you look at the way that Nujoma went about, we couldn't make weapons, as Nyerere was saying. All we could use was possibly just bow and arrows. Now, bow and arrows, whom could you shoot? The other guy will shoot you half a kilometer away, and a bow and arrow will just end somewhere over there. We couldn't manufacture these weapons. And those independent states were only getting them on conditions they will not pass this on to other nations, to so-called guerrillas or terrorists. Now Nujoma to develop the idea of bringing the first weapon from Algeria in a bag. Okay, the security at airports was a bit lapse. Via Egypt to Dar es Salaam to become the seat of the first weapon that we use. I remember in 1965, when I have to travel to the then Ovamboland to meet the commander of this first group of people who came. And I was not convinced. I told them that, look, that was John Otto Nankudu. I didn't think that with those 6 pieces of guns, you could take on the formidable South African force. I was skeptical. And he told me one of the Mao Zedong's quotation that the army marches and swim among the people, and with the support of the people, they will get all these weapons from the people. I said, but here, the army is only for the whites. How do you get the what you call it? So that must be praised and lauded, the courage that Nujoma had. And I'm told that after Kwame Nkrumah called for those colonized people to liberate themselves, a meeting was held in Dar es Salaam where the leaders of the liberation movements were called to find out who was ready to go and fight for the liberation. Now, I think the first group which was called in the country mind, Swan was more popular than Swap at the time. Swan was called in. The question was raised whether they are ready to start fighting. Their answer was that, look, they have to call the people at home and find out whether this is an appropriate thing to do. Nujoma was called in. Nujoma didn't bother to call. He said, yes. But he didn't have the people, he didn't have the guns, all the guns needed. Now it shows the character of a person who was dying to do something that apparently from childhood onward he dreamt he was going to do to liberate the country. Now some of us, I found myself traveling to the north to try and see whether we could get some 500 people out of Ovamboland through Okaoko to the Atlantic Ocean to be picked up by ship. In the hope of creating the nucleus of the fighters who were going to liberate Namibia. So some other things were not planned, but they were showing just one direction, and that is determination. He was fed up with the system. He saw his people suffering. He saw his people dying because of one group of people who thought they were more blessed than the others, and that they had the right to kill and maim. And so that was the man that Nujoma, once he came to the point of believing in something, convinced that it's the right thing to do, you'll not steer him away from the course.
Uncle Ben, as we wrap up this conversation, young people are watching this as well. You and others, when you took up arms, were extremely young. Perhaps also knowing that the road that you were embarking upon will result in some of you not making it. What lessons can we draw from your generation in helping achieve the second phase of the struggle, which is economic emancipation?
To the young people, there are two things that maybe I need to mention. One is Nujoma has been very true to his word. He promised something, he will try to live up to and live up to the promise. Let me come back to that later. In 1969, after the first battles and most of our people were arrested and detained in Pretoria, we started realizing that, look, we thought we were going to win these battles, this war, just overnight. It's going to take time. And it was decided that what we cannot achieve now, the young generation must be prepared, equipped to continue until it's been achieved. We start counting on our youth. A youth league was created, a women league was created, and an elders council was created. That maybe all of us, those who were outside, will not return or come back home alive. Those are the people who are supposed to continue from the pioneers to continue fighting these battles. Now, which battles are left over? The country has been liberated. Thanks to Comrade Nujoma, who denied himself, and others who denied themselves everything in order for others to go to school, to get educated, and things of the sort. But we did not yet succeeded to put bread on each and everyone's table, provide accommodation to each and everyone, to create hospitals in walk-up distance to each and everyone. Now those are or were the issues that we thought, when we fail, the young people have to take over and continue until all people of this country attain those objectives brought about by SWAPO. The structure of SWAPO was, we may not reach back home, but let the young generation, let them get the best of education, but let them fight as fast and hard as they can to make sure that the remaining things that we did not complete are carried out and successfully carried out.
Uncle Ben, thank you so much for making time to come share the various facets of men we all knew. And I always say that, wherever you see the picture of Sam Shafiishuna Nujoma, you automatically think Namibia. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Condolences. It's Ben Amathila, close friend and comrade of the late founding president, sharing his very profound and close memories as to how he met the founding president and how they were able to contribute to the liberation of Namibia. Stay tuned after the short break. Now, Apollos will be speaking to the Director General of the NBC, Stanley Similo.